It was Kizuna Ai who started the VTuber industry and coined the term virtual YouTuber at the start of 2017. And ever since, those who followed in her stead started calling themselves similarly. But while the industry and term started in 2017, the culture did not. It actually started from way before, birthed from a culture that was still anime adjacent and in a form that was entirely different, but very much familiar. And now, we're going to talk about the origins of VTubers. Before the industry began, before Kizuna Ai. We're going to talk about those that came before. The modern definition of a VTuber is that they are anime-adjacent content creators using virtual avatars and play into a kayfabe. Whether they be idols, demons, adventurers, abstract concepts made material, whatever. This is VTubing as we currently know it as. But at its essence, I think VTubing is a very specific and modified extension of voice acting, breathing life into an avatar and playing a character for the entertainment of others. In ye olden age, going virtual was not possible. Fucking obviously. But this desire to project a personality and character into an avatar was something that existed way back then in the form of puppets. But I'm not going to talk about the history of puppetry, nor am I going to say that every computer-generated characters from shows like Kimono Friends are technically VTubers. But in any case, stepping into the virtual world, the first form of VTuber culture was from virtual singers and virtual bands. And the first virtual band to reach breakout success was none other than Alvin and the Chipmunks. Created in 1958, Alvin and the Chipmunks became downright iconic in the Western world. Following this, many others tried to follow in their steps and try to reap the same rewards, like the Archies. But it would be in Japan where the first template for a virtual idol would be born, as Japanese talent agency HoriPro would release Kyoko in 1995. This is the primordial ancestor of Japanese virtual idols. With such an innovative concept, one would think this is probably going to be a massive success. They weren't as difficult to handle like a human being and did not have maintenance costs other than tech wizards that were needed to operate them. However, that wasn't the case. Virtual performers like these were a novel concept, but it's just that we didn't have the proper technology and demand at the time. There was just no way a virtual idol was going to compete with an actual human with this kind of janky-ass movement and uncanny dance moves. You might think it's not that bad, but the results spoke for themselves. Kyoko was born too early. The technology and demand just wasn't there yet. Despite the heavy interest that her debut announcement spawned at the time, the project didn't really find that much popularity and eventually ended her activities in 2007. They then made her daughter named Ayano in 2018 who actually became a full-blown VTuber, and is actually still active now, but she's not finding much success. Though if you happen to wanna visit her, links will be in the description. Following Kyoko, other CGI virtual idols took to the stage but also shared a similar fate. The first K-pop idol followed suit in the form of Adam, and another Japanese virtual idol, Yuko Terai, would also debut a year after Kyoko did. And they all had similar problems. They just looked absolutely weird and were just way ahead of their time. But just because Kyoko failed doesn't mean that the concept of virtual singers was a bad idea at the time. Kyoko was a grand project that was limited by the time's technology, lack of demand, and didn't have the proper tools to hook a bigger community. If one just happened to tone down the requirements of operation, like maybe change the avatars from 3D to 2D and choose a particular art style and aesthetic, maybe even try to mix different genres and try to appeal to different communities rather than just one, maybe, just maybe, it could actually work. This, ladies and gentlemen, was when in 1998, a virtual band was formed far out into the UK and rose to prominence, sparking unprecedented worldwide success and triggering something of a renaissance in the virtualization of entertainment. That band was the Gorillaz. With the unique music of the band and their unique style of going about their content, the Gorillaz were absolute legends. They were the ones that cemented the concept of virtual artists and burned it into the minds of many people. Whether they be average consumers or businessmen wanting to capitalize on the trend, they became a worldwide icon for virtual artists everywhere. And with the internet getting more and more popular as they worked, that only opened up more possibilities and directions as to where virtual form music would go. But in any case, the roots of VTubers again always have been Japanese, because that was when in 2004, Krypton Future Media would release voice banks for their Vocaloid software. Leon and Lola came out first, but they didn't really have that much influence into the culture that we currently know it as. However, the first Vocaloid given an actual body was none other than Meiko. and she actually enjoyed a modest success. She was the prototype for Krypton's future projects. Soon enough, the company would launch even more voice banks in 2007, but one among these voice banks would rise to unprecedented popularity. Following the template of the failed virtual idol Kyoko and the anime-esque appearance of Meiko, Hatsune Miku took to the global stage. It was here when the concept of virtual idols and singers in Japan popped the fuck off. Hatsune Miku and others like Gumi, Kaito, Luka, no not that Luka, and the Kagamine twins found massive success among not just the weeb community but also in the music community both in Japan and overseas. Originally having no personalities of their own, Miko and friends used to be just soulless faces for the software, but these faces became so iconic they were eventually adapted to have their own characters. Albums, game franchises, and even holographic concerts. They became digital billboards all on their own and essentially became one of the biggest cultural forces in Japan. The technology was now enough to make virtual idols a reality. So much so that Hatsune Miku or any kind of Vocaloid concerts were a sight to behold. It was here where the world had the first ingredients of what would become the VTuber industry. Music, idol-adjacent stuff, the internet, and cute anime girls, the essentials were all here. Afterwards, Utaites, which are a subgroup of singers in Nico Nico Doga who did song covers, would follow up by wholly adopting Vocaloid songs and integrating them as a staple of their content. A lot of Utaites used anime-esque avatars to represent them, and it was in here that the VTuber culture started to build. But it wasn't exactly that yet. Some might even argue that the Utaite culture and community is the earliest form of the VTuber community. The hidden ones, before it turned into the Order of Assassins. And in multiple ways, I would actually agree with you. It's not a surprise either, considering that a lot of Utaites saw the breakout success of VTubing and the transition was super easy for them. Being an Utaite and a Japanese VTuber is not that different these days. Really, the only difference is that a VTuber's avatar is animated and they stream more often. The use of CGI or 2D animated avatars were rising, especially from the anime aesthetic. All sorts of individuals and companies started capitalizing on the trend. Even Japanese businesses started using CGI anime characters to market their products. It's not the first time that they did it, but these days were when they actually started gaining success. Like Nitro Plus releasing Supersonico back in 2010 as the mascot for their products and as a face for the company. Then Weather News came along with Airi in 2012. But if companies could do something like that, surely individual content creators can too, right? Well then, let's have a look at our very first indie VTuber on YouTube on its most primitive form, with its own kayfabe, shtick, and everything required to technically count as a VTuber. Harry the Hamster.
My name's Harry the Hamster. I'm about 8 centimeters tall, a little bit chubby, and a little bit hairy, and I'm looking for a female so I can shove my fucking
This is the problem with trying to identify the origins of VTubing, because these days VTubing is used so loosely it's gotten to a point that a lot of people would count anyone using a virtual avatar as a VTuber, which is kind of problematic as to defining what a VTuber is, to be honest. Look, point is, I know a lot of people are waiting for me to mention Annoying Orange, but as big and influential as he was, I don't consider him a VTuber, because doing so would broaden the definition so much it's going to lose its meaning. Because if I consider Annoying Orange to be a VTuber, then technically every single content creator using a CGI or 2D avatar would be a VTuber, which just doesn't sound right to me. I do consider him an entirely different prehistoric version of one though, an ape before it evolved into a human. Something like that. I'm not going to go into the intricacies of what being a VTuber is because that's an entire can of worms that deserves its own video. That being said, there is another prehistoric version of a VTuber that has closer ties with a modern definition though. Ame Yamato, who started off in 2011. She's a Japanese YouTuber living in England using a virtual 3D avatar and is what many people, including myself, would call one of the first real indie proto-VTubers. She's the closest breed to the kind of VTubers that we know as now. But the thing that makes her different was that she didn't really do typical VTuber activities like singing, streaming, or doing idol-related stuff. She was pretty much just a blogger, making random videos of random topics that she wanted to film and talk about. Her formula wasn't exclusive to her though, as other people such as the actual fucking Barbie would follow the same format and make her own vlogs, adding more to the point that companies were now starting to make their own interactive virtual characters to represent their products. Come 2014, an Indiegogo campaign known as FaceRig became extremely popular among those wanting to experiment with virtual avatars, be it 3D or 2D. It was used by many content creators to make their own little skits and avatars, such as Gigak back in 2017 and even Iron Mouse when she started streaming. However, also in 2014, the next successful proto-VTuber that came up, as digitally drawn avatars became common, was none other than the grass eater herself, Eilene. She was still Vocaloid inspired for the most part, as she didn't actually use her real voice to talk. Rather, she used a voice bank and was actually more akin to an animated shitposter than a VTuber. She brought in the primordial meme that was Ebola-chan, and her content was pretty based if you ask me. They're a product of their time, so I don't want anyone waving their pitchforks. She became something of a significant force in the weeb community before the VTubing industry even began. She later launched many offshoots, known as her family, like Eilene, Benno, Moemi, Hyomemi, Moe, and most notoriously, Mirai Akari, who Eilene gave her channel to back in early 2017, jump-starting Akari's rise to stardom and capitalizing on the start of the VTuber industry that Kizuna-ai founded. As Mirai Akari became one of the biggest VTubers in the classical era, you can see why Eilene is an important figure in the community by extension. But she didn't belong to any era of the modern industry. She was here before the beginning, the pioneer of pioneers. But soon enough, complications related to creative differences arose with her work for the Mirai Akari project. After a divorce from Entom, she no longer had any involvement with Mirai Akari. All the videos that she used to have on the Mirai Akari channel were set to private and they had to part ways, leaving many people to wonder if there had been any beef or problem with their relationship in the company. In 2018, Eilene would go 3D and would remake one of the characters of her old skit videos, Moe, into Natsume Moe, a pioneer of the English VTubing community. And again, Eilene would give her her channel. These days, Eilene doesn't really make content anymore. She has a channel but she doesn't have any videos on it. All her family offshoots had their own dedicated YouTube channels, and she's even managed most of them in the past, but the ones that are still active now are the ones that have separated from Eilene herself. Everyone else stopped making content. As for where Eilene is and what she's doing, I don't know. It's been a really long time and I haven't kept up. But it just goes to show you how easy it is to forget pioneers. Those that helped found these communities usually don't come out on top when it changes. They're usually forgotten. Sometimes unable to keep up with the rapid demands and evolution of the industry, sometimes because of mistakes that pioneers often make since they have no guide as to what to do, and sometimes more talented and skilled people steal the spotlight away from them. It's the fate that befalls most pioneers of any community or industry. All we can really do is support those that we have now and pay homage to those that came before. Eilene was an influential creator of the era before the VTubing industry existed. An era where the ingredients for VTubing was already there, but wasn't mixed together to make the community that it is now. Her story is a wild one that I unfortunately can't cover entirely in this video lest I derail it. But after her, the VTuber industry and community was finally founded. Kizuna-ai was the first one to coin the term virtual YouTuber and officially started this industry. It's why it's safe to say that she is the first VTuber to ever exist. But the industry she founded and the community that she appealed to were an amalgamation of many cultures and communities around the world. From virtual bands and virtual singers, to Utaites and Vocaloid artists, to the virtualization of avatars used for individual content creators, and to the live streaming and simping culture that's the standard of today's content. There were many faces of different cultures that made up the VTuber community, and while I wouldn't consider all of them VTubers per se, they are early versions of it. It's undeniable that they helped shape the industry that we currently know it as. The origins of VTubing is the desire to project oneself into another form, to stop being you and live out the life of someone else and something else that was extraordinary. The desire to act, to be expressive, to be creative. At its essence, VTubing originated from the basic human desire to become the ideal version of ourselves. Wow, that was pretentious as hell. Anyway, hey everyone, thanks for watching this video. Leave a like and comment down below if I've missed something or if you have something to add. And if you want to support me, joining my membership or Patreon will be the best way to do so. Anyway, that's it. See ya.